Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another installment of our How to Use series for the mobile game Marvel Realm of Champions, which is available for Android and iOS devices. Today we are looking at the character that is given to you as a part of the tutorial to the game, and that is the Iron Legionnaire. Now, if you were paying attention as to what is explained with this character when he is first gifted to you, you should have a decent understanding of the in-game mechanics and specifically the early game weapon that he has. But like other characters on the cast, he does have access to more than one weapon, and if you're not familiar with how it works, well, that's what we're here to flesh out. But as a brief review of the main weapon that he has, of course, we need to talk about his super laser. Now, this is the weapon that you are given to learn how to play the game, and the interesting thing about the Iron Legionnaire is that his standard attacks with both weapons both have ranged and up-close variants, so he's a fairly versatile fighter, though his strength certainly is more so in the camp of being able to hit enemies from a distance and staying clear of some of the heavier hitting fights. So where possible, you do want to try and stay away from large heavy hitting characters such as Captain America, Super Soldier, or Hulk, as they will burn through you very, very quickly. But now we get into the disparities between the two different weapon types. Focusing on the super laser first, we have the heavy attack, which is the twin laser. This emits two laser blasts in a direct line away from the character and will hit multiple enemies in the path of contact as that attack is initiated and launched out in front. It does have that cooldown, so try and line up your heavy attack with either the most threatening enemy, or if you do happen to get a couple of them lined up in the same area, you can deal a decent amount of burst damage there. The Special 1 ability, which is consistent across both weapon types, is the Arc Reactor Flight. This has two primary uses. The first is if you're in a pinch, you can use it to get out of the area that you are within, but it does have a landing hitbox of activation where you can fall down on top of your opponents and deal some crushing damage as you come down on top of them. I personally find myself using it to back out of a fight if I've overextended myself, repositioning and then dropping in to deal some damage, as well as making sure that I'm not too far up a creek when trying to fight some of these opponents. The second ability, and the first of the unique ones to the super laser, is the laser volley. This involves a fan type laser cone that goes out in front of the character to deal damage to multiple enemies. However, it is important to note that each blast from this laser volley can only connect with one opponent. So you cannot deal excess damage by detonating this attack right up in the face of an opponent, but it still deals a fair amount of damage, so that shouldn't disparage you from using it, as it can provide a decent amount of crowd control for hitting a lot of enemies if they're all grouped up together. And finally, with the super laser weapon, we have the TriBeam Assault. Now, this is a high damage ability that you can unleash to mow down large enemies. You can use it to specifically target onto the Bodok mini bosses in the competitive arenas, and it is important to note that you can swing this beam back and forth in the 360 degrees of motion of the character, though it is important to note that you will not be able to complete that full circle on account of the time that is taken with that, and most of the time you're not going to want to anyway. It's needed to reposition slightly if there are opponents that are moving or trying to move out of the way. A forewarning with this attack is you can be canceled out of it if you are knocked down or stunned, or something, some other attack from an opponent makes contact with you that will knock you out of that animation. So make sure that you wait to see if the shield bash or the heavy slam type attacks from different characters have been used, so you won't be knocked out of your highest damage dealing ability. Let's now switch over and talk a little bit about the Iron Legionnaire's secondary weapon set, and that is the drones. Now, this weapon is a little bit more tactical and requires a bit more familiarity with how it works to get the most out of the attack, but between the two, it does allow for much higher damage output, as well as those crowd control features that this character is particularly proficient at. The difference in the two characters' heavy attacks is this drone weapon has the precision strike, where there will be 4 different homing rockets that are sent out to deal damage to the different opponents, though they do have a bit of a finite range, so you can't just spam the heavy attack from across the map. It will auto-lock onto the same target though, so make sure that you are lined up in the direction that you want to be and nearest to the enemy that you're going to get the most amount of damage out of, especially making sure that you do not find yourself near any walls that your opponents can duck behind, as that will collide with it as they do not turn around sharp corners to finalize the damage output. We've already talked about ability number 1. There isn't anything different between these two different weapons, but the second ability with the drones is the Soul Electro Cage, and that is a very interesting attack and definitely the most technical of the weapons within the Iron Legionnaire's arsenal when it comes to using it. This will bring a satellite command dropped cage into the battlefield that initiates an electric ring around the targets. It will inflict slow to the targets and deal some shock damage during the duration of the attack being present. Now, this can be reacted to upon being pulled down if the character has a dodge available, so sometimes it's kind of best to throw this out as a deterrent to either make your opponents go around, or if they read it too late, they will end up walking into it and taking up some of that damage. It's not the greatest ability when it comes to dealing damage to the mini-boss characters. It's more meant of a nuisance and a deterrent from allowing your opponents to get in close on you. Though it is important to note that characters that have unstoppable traits available to them, primarily Hulk, will be able to blitz right through that without having the slowness take any effect to them if they have that ability active. And finally, ability number 3 is the highest damage special 3 ability that I have come across thus far, in the form of the Airstrike Barrage. This basically lines up an airstrike plane out in front of the character, and you get a very good idea for where that's going to detonate when initiating this attack with the interface that pops up with it. And you will just rain down fire from the heavens on top of your opponents if they're within the range of that attack. It deals a lot of very high impact damage and certainly helps for burning down characters if they are lined up within that wide area of effect, as well as dealing large amounts of damage to the Bodok mini-boss characters as well. So Iron Legionnaire, he is a very interesting character. He's not my favorite to play, but he is a fairly straightforward character that does quite well when it comes to being the introduction to how this game is meant to work. But what do you think of the Iron Legionnaire? Do you enjoy playing around with him? Do you not really care for him all that much? Be sure to let me know in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe for more daily content, as we will be covering Storm in our breakdown next week. Thanks again for watching, and I hope that you have an absolutely fantastic rest of your day.